All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. It is Monday, March 20th of 2023 here, back after the weekend. So looking forward to a good week of shows here. You guys know we do this show Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Come on the show, get your questions answered. We answer questions both that come in live in the YouTube chat or in the office hours channel in our Discord server. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew, one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. Looks like Daniel is here. Welcome, Daniel. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. Like I said, you can post them live in the YouTube chat, in the office hours channel, in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord, there's a link in the description below to get joined up. Highly recommend it as always. Looks like we have a 6-game NBA slate as well as a 5-game hockey slate here. Was a good weekend of golf and MMA and Formula One, NASCAR, action-packed weekend. Great time to be playing DFS. And then we got league today. Tennis is coming up, big tennis tournament coming up this week. So a lot of fun DFS. If you're not joined up with SaberSim and want to check us out, there's a link in the description below. 7-day, no strings attached free trial. And with that, we are going to jump right in here. So it looks like we have a couple questions to get us going today. If anybody has any questions, now is a great time to get them in. I'm going to start with a question that came in from support over the weekend here. And the question says, hi, SaberSim. I have to say I absolutely love the late swap and mini unique players, features, and instructional videos. Using the tactics a few times in NBA contests, I got to thinking, if I'm going to late swap for each time slot, should I also use the min unique tactic where I keep increasing the min uniques until my total lineups lower or the last lineup ranking exceeds 400 when building the initial lineups? I ask because I look at both as ways to get different from the field, but I'm a bit afraid that I may be getting too unique. Okay, good question here. So this is a good one to get us going today. So I'm just going to pull up a build that I ran a little bit ago. We'll use this as our demo build here for the day. And what I would say is that something that I like to do, which I know that we have different ways of approaching this within the team ourselves, just kind of, to me, says that there's no right way to do it. There's no one way that is, the only way to do it, right? So for somebody like Scott and Jordan, they really like to max out min uniques. Basically what they do is they increase the min uniques until the number of lineups requested can't be met, right? So at 6, we have 19 lineups, so that does not work, right? So then my understanding is that they would decrease it 1 to get it back to within range and then be comfortable playing those lineups. I think that's fine. If you are somebody who wants to get really spread out, really wide, I think that approach makes sense. Something that I like to do, which instead of going to max diversity first, I go to half diversity first. So my goal is to get half of my lineup unique from every other lineup in my pool, and then see where I'm at from there as far as how far down in my pool I have to go. So I like to scroll to the bottom of my lineups here. At 4 min uniques, which is about half my lineup, I'm at lineup 41. That's top 10% of my pool here. I think that's great. I would experiment with going one step further here, and I would be okay playing 5 as well. So more than one path to the right answer. It's interesting that, both approaches that we took there both got us to 5 min uniques. But I would be okay with 4. And I think that sometimes when you do this experiment, you might even get to less depending on the number of games on the slate. So I would be open to approaching it from different angles, to having different min uniques for different size slates. And then, for late swap, talking about late swap specifically here, basically the point of late swap is you're trying to capitalize on breaking news and projection adjustments and updates that the field is not paying attention to, right? So I would be a little more careful using late swap and min uniques and maxing out min uniques, mostly because what min uniques is going to do is get you off of the best plays and diversify your portfolio, which I think is great especially pre-lock. But I think post-lock, if, let's say, I haven't looked at the injury report yet, but, Luka and Kyrie are projected to play, questionable. Let's say they both get ruled out. Now Dallas becomes huge value. You probably want to get to like a lot of Dallas, and especially if if only 50% of the field is swapping, and some of these Dallas guys like Tim Hardaway comes in 25% owned. Well, he probably would have been like 50+% owned if that news would have came out pre-lock. So that right there is the edge. So just watch your exposures as you increase mini uniques in your late swaps, and make sure you're not getting decreased exposure to the now best plays. Make sure that you're able to maintain high exposure to some of those new plays that have opened up after lock, and be flexible with adjusting your mini uniques up or down. So that's probably the best advice I can give on that topic. All right, so that was a good question. That came in from support. We'll make sure to get a timestamp recording back over to you. Gonna hop over to the Discord here. And the question that came in first was like right after our Friday show with Sklarmageddon. I thought this was a good one, so I do want to cover this for everybody here. Question was, hey, Andrew, sorry, I was going to skip that part. Here's my question. I made an NHL build last week and used Sabres Score 2.0 to sort. One was large slate 10 to 50K. I filled the contest with that. Then I sorted by large slate 1K to 10K and filled my smaller contest. When I checked my lineups in DK, I had 8 or so that were in there twice, once in the smaller and once in the bigger. Is there any way for me to use the new sorting, but within a single build and not duplicate myself? So I thought this was a really good question. So basically, instead of running 2 separate builds, what Sklarmageddon said is like, hey, I'm just going to run one build and then I'm going to sort them differently in the post build to save time, right? I think this can make a lot of sense if you're right up against lock and don't have time for multiple builds. So I thought this was like pretty intuitive. In order to do what you are trying to do, so basically he's saying like, hey, I'm going to build 20 lineups for a diversifier. I'm going to fill these in a 20 max, and then I want to go back and fill my elevators, which are my single entries and 3 maxes. I don't want to dupe. How do I get rid of these lineups and basically work with the rest of my pool in my new sorting method? So the only way to do that at the moment would be to come in here and then just trash these. So then I would just trash these 20 lineups here, and then it goes pretty fast depending on the number of lineups you're building here. So I just trashed all 20 lineups. I'm going to hit fill to 20. So then it's going to give me 20 new lineups out of my pool. And then I can come in here and then I can resort. And then it will give me a new set of lineups at the top to that have not been used yet. So in this example, we have a fresh set of lineups here. And then if you were to fill with these new lineups, they would not be the same as your 20 that you just filled with. So I did ask the team about like a bulk trash feature, and they said that, that is on the roadmap to work into the app in the near future. But for now, it didn't take too long to trash those, and that is how you would do that. Sklarmageddon was happy with that answer, so glad we were able to cover that, but did want to cover that for everybody watching. All right. Next question from J. Sams Jr. Question is, hello, Andrew. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Also, I have a question of what is the best way to build for a 150 max contest if you're only going to be putting in 1 to 10 lineups for the nickel contest on FanDuel? Should I put in the entry limit for 150 entry, even though I am only playing less than 150 lineups? SaberSim rocks. Awesome. So good question here. What I would do is that, treat the contest as the contest and not the number of entries you have in the contest. So if you are putting if you're putting 10 lineups in 150 max, over 50K, I would leave that. I would leave that as the contest settings. And then regardless of what you do in the post build, just change the number of lineups, because what those settings are really doing, and if you're not playing 150, you're only playing 10, just change the number of lineups to 10. What you are doing with that is you're telling SaberSim like, hey, this is the type of contest I'm playing. Build me lineups that can win this contest. So you do want to give SaberSim that input. You do not want to tell it, you're playing a smaller contest where you might not need as high of a score or as much upside to win. So it's better to tell SaberSim the type of contest you're playing, and then you can just adjust the number of lineups you need in the post build. So that is how I would do that. But good question there. I'm going to go with Zara here. Zara said, will there be sims for PGA Match play this week? Frankly, I don't know. I know that there was some discussion going around it about it this morning. So in past seasons, we have not supported match play, but I do know the team was talking about it. So let me get an update on that. Match play support. And then I can answer that on tomorrow's show. And then because you posted it in the Discord, I can ping you back in the office hours channel and let you know in case you miss it. So good question there. I will find out if we are going to be supporting match play or not. All right. Scrolling up here, jumping over to the YouTube chat. If anybody has any questions, now's a great time to get them in. Daniel said, if I'm doing NBA 3-match GBP, is it always best to diversify all three lineups using min uniques and running 5,000 pool? Also, is diversification always best for NBA if running less than 10 lineups per slate? Okay, good question. So it sounds like you're on the pro plan. So, on the pro plan, you can build up to 5,000 lineups. I would say that, if you're in a time crunch, I think it's okay to build less. The right answer is to always build 5,000 because you can. And because the way that SaberSim generates lineups, the best lineup is not always first. We could generate 5,000 lineups, and then after they're generated, SaberScore then goes in and ranks them and figures out which ones are the best. So in theory, your best lineup could be your last built lineup. So it's always good to build 5,000. If you're in a time crunch, I think it's totally okay to decrease that number and just make that number smaller there. Because 5,000 for 3 is a little bit of overkill. So no problem decreasing that number at all here. But getting back to your next question about diversification. So I think that, the less lineups you have, the more diverse you can get just naturally here, just because you have more options, right? So if we were to look at our entire pool of lineups here, we have, let's go back to, let's say we're doing 150 lineups, right? I can't even get to 4 min uniques. I run out of lineups. I would have to do 3 min uniques here to get 150. But let's say I'm only doing 3 lineups, right? I'm pretty sure I can get probably up to 6 min uniques, 7 min uniques. Let's see. Okay, we can do 7, 8 min uniques. Can we do 8? No, we can't do 8. So we can do 7 though. So basically you have more optionality the less lineups that you are building. So I think that's even more of a reason to get spread out here, is just because, the less lineups you have, the less kind of opportunities you have in a contest to get first. So if you have, a lot of similar pieces in those 3 lineups, then your lineups are really boom or bust. They're all really kind of all going to do good or all going to do bad. If you were to use a higher min uniques here, use more players across your 3 lineups, that just gives you more shots on goal. And if one player gets hurt, gets ejected, has a bad game, it really has no effect on your other lineups. The only player we're sharing here is Simone Fontecchio, and I believe that is because Laurie Markkanen got ruled out, so his ownership is already really high here. So probably a fine play overall, but I think that, the less lineups you're playing overall on a given night, the more you should increase your min uniques to try and spread out even further. We're still only using 22 players in our player pool, so I think it's totally fine there. All right. Uncrabby Cabby said, hey, Andrew, for MLB, will there be adjusted ownership for stacks? That is a good question. Frankly, I don't know. I know that there is going to be adjusted ownership for players, but I don't think there will be adjusted ownership for stacks, mostly because we don't project stack ownership. I think we would have to project stack ownership in order to have adjusted ownership for stacks. So I think that's going to be handled on the player level, but ultimately that will have a compounding effect when we are grading your lineups based on the SaberScore sorting metric. Snowman said, How do I win in NBA? You know, great question. I would say, the best thing that you can do really, if you want to be able to play NBA long term, is to follow the DFS profit plan that we have up on the YouTube channel. If you guys are not familiar with that, it's our contest selection framework that we created based on a lot of backtesting. We did an entire backtesting series on it in our behind the Sims videos. So if you want to dive into how that plan came to fruition, go in and watch our behind the Sims series episodes 1 through 4 about contest selection. And then what came out of that was our DFS profit plan, which you can find on our homepage of our YouTube channel. Start winning more with our DFS profit plan. It is basically telling you, kind of the ranges of the right balance of contests to play and where to play those contests. So the best thing that you could do is play under the $3 threshold, where the best players do not have access to those contests. 90% of winning is finding the right games and finding the right contests to play. So you always want to find an area where you are better than the average player in that contest. So that is why contest selection is so important there. Something I say all the time is that you can be the 10th best poker player in the world. If you're sitting at the table with the other 9, you are now the worst player at the table. That is why contest selection is so important. So strong contest selection, strong bankroll management, following a lot of the tips and advice that we give on the show in our channel, how to beat NBA DFS in 2022. Revisit these videos, listen to Max talk about NBA DFS at the beginning of the season. Listen to Jordan and I talk about how to research NBA. Listen to Jordan talk about late swap and why it's important and why you should be late swapping or be prepared to late swap each and every slate, right? So I would review some of this content. Hang in there if you're having a rough go at it, and just continue to grind it out. But I'm going to get SaberSim pulled back up on the screen here. And it looks like we have quite a few viewers at the moment. So welcome, everybody. Glad you are all tuning in. If you have questions, now's a great time to get them in. Kyle said, thanks for answering my question. Perfect. Happy to help, Kyle. And Snowman said, SaberSim rocks. We do our best, man. We do our best over here. All right. Mike Carr said, will there be an MLB show or video prior to the start of the season? Yes, there definitely will be. We should have something like how to beat MLB DFS in 2023. There should be plenty to talk about this season with all the rule changes going on across MLB, with the pitch clock and stolen bases being increased, and a lot of the new changes and adjustments to data that are going to need to take place going into the new season. So there should be something out on that within the next week or 2 here. So I'll make a note of myself to find out when we will have some MLB content. But MLB is a big sport for us, and we will make sure to get something out for everybody. Scrolling down here, RS said, watching the pro videos is like collecting gold. It's one of the great reasons to be on the pro plan, man. We have a lot of features that come with the SaberSim Pro plan, which we list here. But right behind build up to 5,000 lineups, I really think the pro exclusive content is number 2 on that list. Just we have different people talk each and every week. We've had Matt, Jordan, Scott, myself. I think Max has been on there. We are challenging like the DFS status quo. We are talking about new ways of looking at problems and just advanced theory. And I think it's a great listen if you're on the pro plan. But if you're not on the pro plan, I think that is one of the very enticing reasons to join the pro plan, is some of these pro videos. All right, Grayson said, what's up, Andrew? How do you personally filter your pool to get the most optimal lineups for your NBA contests? This is a good question. This is something that I've really gone back and forth on kind of all NBA season. In that NBA video that I just referenced with Max Steinberg, Max talked about curating his player pool kind of aggressively with like a min projection filter of 18. You can watch him in the video say that. He says he would use like a min projection filter of 18. And that was at the beginning of the season. I don't know what he's doing now. And then, for a while, I was experimenting with that. And then I kind of got away from that. And I started to trust the sim more. I think the sim does a great job on its own. So what I started doing was setting a filter of 7 here. And basically, I just kind of wanted like a guardrail filter for like some of the lowest projected plays. So I don't have to see guys with zeros just like cluttering my table here. And then you could do it with this high remove player. So I would make this cutoff around like 7. I found that it was like a decent thing for like minutes. There's like usually like a minute drop off around that mark. So it's just something I would use just kind of out of the gate, just like a guardrail. And then, when I would run a build, right, I'm gonna run a build right now with this at 7. Even with giving the builder that extra optionality to go that far down the projection list, it never really would, and it would still stay closer to like 13-ish. And I thought that was really a good example of like the builder knows what it's doing and is able to like put in the right players in the right times here. So if we were to scroll down to 7, which is my cutoff, we aren't seeing any of these players up until 13, and we're seeing one lineup here with Anthony Lamb, which I might just get rid of. It's literally the only lineup in the pool with him. But we're barely getting any exposure to some of these plays, and then we start to get more exposure around like the 17-point range and up. So the builder is doing what it needs to do on its own. I have experimented lately with being a little more restrictive and trying to like really focus in and decrease my player pool. So I think there's like a lot of different ways to do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. This kind of goes back to like the mini unique discussion we're talking about, where some players like to be really unique and some players like to be less unique. I think that, you should feel comfortable being like wide open with your player pool and having no filters. But then I also think that you can do some player pool curation, right? So, no right or wrong answer here. I would say run builds. You can just sit here and just run a build, add some filters, add no filters, run a build. And you can have, as many builds as you want. We don't cap you. And you can just figure out what you want and try different filters and see what you're comfortable with. What is passing the eye test for you? What is getting you to the exposures that you want on a player level, on a team level, on a stack level, depending on the sport, right? So be open with it, experiment, and trial and error is probably your best friend for figuring that out. Uncrabby Cowie said, I think Snowman's lineups are affected by your mustache. I don't know. He's made a couple of comments up to this point, so we'll see. I don't think he's a fan. Daniel said, if I'm on the pro plan, how do I find the pro exclusive content? Great question. So in the Discord, if you are on the pro plan, you should have access to the pro channels, which is a lineup named pro and then pro videos. So if you don't have those lineups and you're in the Discord, just ping us in the support channel and just say, hey, I'm on the pro plan. I'm not seeing the pro or pro videos channel, but that is where they live, in the pro videos channel. You should be able to find all past pro exclusive content. It is all housed there. So great news is if you sign up today, you get all of the past pro videos as well. We try to release one new pro video a week on average. A little leeway there. All right. Jumping back to Discord, looks like Zara said, sounds good. Thanks about the PGA match play. Yep. I will make sure to get an answer back to you on that one. And then question from Chuck the Pure. Chuck said, with the sliders being so similar for 20 max and single entry, is it better to do one build or separate builds? So I would actually be kind of surprised if they were like super similar. So correlation 1, sim diversity 7, for 20 max 1 to 10K. And then for single entry, oh yeah, it is pretty close. So I would say that, this is probably a preference thing. I think usually the number of entrants changes a lot here. So like you'll see a lot of single entries from like 1 to 10K. But then you'll see a lot of 20 max in like the 10 to 50K range. Even the sliders are really similar there. So I think that's probably a good case to build them all together, especially in a sport like NBA, to save some time. So you could, focus on risk management in the post build for one build, as opposed to having to manage 2 builds and then do 2 late swaps and things like that. Kind of goes against like some of the diversifier elevator stuff. So I think that the benefit of building your single entries and 3 maxes is different. is that you can get kind of really granular with them, and you're usually, not playing as many of them, right? Like you might enter 5 dime times for like 100 unique entries, but you might only enter, up to like 10 unique lineups across single entries and 3 maxes. So you get to micromanage those a little more. You get to be kind of more particular about what players are in those lineups, what those stack types are. They don't get lost in the weeds. And then the other good thing is that, when you go to fill those lineups, you know exactly what lineups are going into those contests. And it's not kind of random as it might be when you're using unique rank or unique random across a big contest portfolio, right? So I think that if there are certain contests that you really care about, to build them separately and be able to be a little more intentional with some of those exposures and where they go. But if that's not the case, if you're really comfortable with all of the entry limits across all of your contests, I think building them all together does make a lot of sense there, just for time purposes and for ease of maneuver there. All right. That is our last question in both the YouTube channel and the Discord. I'm going to go through the NBA injury report here, do a little first look while we wait for any more questions to roll in. So if anybody has any questions, get them in the chat and we will go from there and see where we end up on this show. But going to pull up the NBA injury report here. So I'm going to go over to our basketball news dashboard here. A lot of questionables. Looks like Luka was also just ruled out. We were just talking about Luka and Kyrie here. So it looks like Luka is indeed out today. So let's roll through here, right? Right at lock, plenty of news to worry about. I guess the Duarte and Jackson aren't like super important. Duarte has been starting a lot. Benedict Mathurin has been out for a little while here. He's like their 6th man off the bench, right off the bench. So he should be important if he's rolled in. And then we'll take a look at the out players in a minute here. Not super concerned about these guys on Chicago and Philly here. Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Naz. It seems like Gobert and Naz are questionable like almost every day now. Every time we do this segment, every time I'm playing like on the weekends, they're always questionable. And to this point, they've both played every single time in like the last across the last 3 games where they've been questionable. So not putting too much weight there, but I feel like as soon as you do that, they're going to get ruled out. So who knows? So keep your eye on the center situation with Minnesota. And then Anthony Edwards dealing with a right ankle sprain. We will see if he plays. We will also see if he's on a minutes limit if he does play. But I did hear he was in a boot, after like the initial injury. So that kind of leads me to believe they'll be a little more careful with him. But we will see. Kevin Looney, Jalen Green, Sengun, these are all big names. And then, couple that with Hardaway, Kyrie, and Jaren Jackson Jr., and Kevin Huerter. Like there is a lot of news here late in the slate. So about, halfway point of the slate, 6 games. And then, this back half of the 6 games. So might be an opportunity to work in some late swap flexibility depending on when this news comes out. But I would definitely be keeping my eyes on all of this 7 p.m. Central news and seeing how that all works out. All right, so Halliburton is out. I think that's important for this Mathurin news, makes the Mathurin news even more valuable. Mark Williams is out, so I think that means Nick Richards is probably next man up there. Yeah, he is priced up pretty high already, though. Kai Jones, I thought Kai Jones had like a really good game, like last game Charlotte played. So I would be looking into some of this center split with Charlotte and seeing how that's all going to work out with Mark Williams out, and see if Mark Williams was indeed out the last game and how that all played out. So possibly a little research to do in Charlotte. And then obviously we got the Luka news. Clarkson's out, Markkanen's out, Sexton's out. This is why Fontecchio was chalk. I'm assuming THT will probably be pretty chalky as well. So, maybe Chris Dunn, so I would look into some Utah stuff, see if you can make out anything out of this madness going on with Utah. So Utah news. So a lot going on in the back half of the slate today, everybody. So I hope that you are all around to late swap. And if you are not going to be around to late swap, do not play the main slate. All right. That's the best news I can give you. Or that's the best advice I can give you. If you're not going to be around to late swap, especially on a slate like today, better to play some showdowns, better to play some turbos, some things like that. But late swap, very valuable. depending on when all this news comes out. All right, jumping back to the YouTube chat here. It looks like we have one more question here from Grayson. And Grayson said, I know in the past, SaberSim was opposed to backtesting. If you backtest, what are you trying to find out? That will help for future contests. So I wouldn't say we're opposed to backtesting. We do a lot of backtesting on our internally, but I just think it's like the type of backtesting or the way the backtesting occurs, right? So we're doing it, on a from like a programming standpoint, which is like outside of my skill set, but basically like the models guys and Matt are going in and doing, contest sims and large sample back testing. What we really caution users from is going back to a previous slate and then trying to like reverse engineer the winning lineup, how to get that lineup in your pool, etc., like that. We think that's more noise than signal, and we don't think you're going to be able to gain a lot from that. If you're interested in analyzing your process in SaberSim, I think one thing that you can really do is go back to a slate, and then this is a concept we talked about. Some of the more frequents in the show will know about this. Like Krabby Cabby comes to mind. Is go back into a build that you ran or the build that you used to build your lineups. I think NBA is probably a bad example of this because of late swap. But basically, what you can do is see how many lineups in your pool of lineups ended up in the top 1% of the contest. I think this makes more sense for something like MLB or NFL, where you are not late swapping. I think late swapping hurts this analysis a lot here. But basically, what you're trying to do is determine how many of the lineups you built in your pool would have ended up in the top 1% of the contest. So all you got to do is pick a contest that your score is and what the the place is. So if there's 20,000 entrants, go see what number 200 scored and then see what that score is, and then come back to the app and then check that against actuals in your pool. So what you would do is you come into the pool, you would sort by actuals, which would be an option here once the slate is over, and then see how many lineups you had above that threshold. And then that will tell you, how strong was your pool, and then you can do different things from there. If you have a strong pool, that's great. In that case, the more lineups you play, the better. The more unique lineups you get in play, the more likely it is those lineups end up in your contest, right? But then if your analysis is showing you that you're not getting a lot in the top 1%, then that's an opportunity to decide, okay, do I want to do more player pool curation in the home screen? Do I want to set some rules? Do I want to do some more research and look into projections and areas that I think I can improve the app and some of the inputs into the app? And that is really the best use of your time, the best use of backtesting, the best way to add value to SaberSim and analyze your process. So if you are doing it, that is the route I would take instead of just trying to figure out how to build the best lineup from yesterday's slate and then do that exact thing today, because slates change, salaries change, value changes, number of games on a slate changes. One slate is not exactly equal to a past one. So along with that, something else that we talked about, I believe like last week, is use a tool. Mike Carr said I'm having mic issues. So let me know if I am still having mic issues. I do apologize about that. But if someone can confirm that it was just like an intermittent glitch, let me know and we will continue here. But apologies about that. Okay, Mike, thank you for the confirmation. But something else, along those lines that we mentioned last week is use a tool like ResultsDB. And it's a free RotoGrinders tool where they have past contest information, and then compare your lineups to lineups of winning players, of long-term winning players, such as Travis Petty Theft 89, such as Uticow, such as Shady Advice, such as Giant Squid, right? Such as Crafty Lefty, some of these really good, volume players in the community as well. And see what they're playing, and then see how your exposures match up to them, and then see where you're wrong, and or not where you're wrong, but where you're different, and let that guide your research. Like, okay, why did Crafty Lefty end up on this set of players and I did not? And my exposure to them was really low. And then see if you can, get some signal from that. And that's another area I would try and spend some time learning about my process. But those are my best advice. That's my best advice there. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any follow up there. But that is all the questions in the YouTube chat and the Discord and from support. Looks like we got to a lot of questions today. So we will be right back tomorrow for our Tuesday show. So if you guys have any questions, building lineups throughout the day, something pops in your head, throw it in the Office Hours channel. Let it sit there. I'll try and get you an answer before slate lock if, to help you guys out. But then we will just circle back to it on the show. That way everybody can hear the answer to the question. So until tomorrow, take care, good luck, and I will see you. Bye.